Iran's revolution was in 1979. 1979! Jimmy Carter was the US president. Menachem Begin was the Israeli prime minister. The last Iranian Shah would be 105 today. So let's change this notion that a long-awaiting Iranian replacement army will ride in on tanks and jeeps, because it's wheelchairs and walkers at best. So Israelis, if you're wondering, are we interested in liberating Iranians? In liberating Gazans? In liberating Lebanon? No, no, and no. Israel is interested in eliminating threats. It's no longer a threat, it's no longer our fight. Iran has lost. Nearly 2 years ago, we talked about the Biden administration coming in and partnering with Israel. Partnering with Israel mafia style to limit Israel's response in Gaza. Well, this week, the Trump administration came in and partnered with Iran. Mafia style to serve as a mediator for a ceasefire with Israel. Iran then agreed to a ceasefire through this mediator. The same mediator who openly and publicly just blew up their nuclear facilities. The same mediator who just bombed them with some of the heaviest non-nuclear bombs in existence. The same mediator who may have just ended Iran's golden ticket to survival. And why a golden ticket? The Ukraine transferred its Soviet nuclear weapons to Russia in 1994, replacing those weapons with a promise of Western protection. The Ukraine was eventually invaded by Russia. Iraq's nuclear facility was bombed by Israel in 1981. Iraq was eventually invaded by the United States, twice. Meanwhile, no one invades North Korea, and no one invades Pakistan. North Korea and Pakistan have nuclear weapons. That's a golden ticket. The Ayatollahs know this, the mullahs know this, and we know this. So if your mediator is the same one who just blew up your path to survival, you're not dealing with a winning hand. So we'll go through some of Iran's losses. As for Iran's ability to defend itself, within a matter of hours, Iran had no air defense and no air force. It then absorbed days of unfettered bombing by Israel and then the United States. Iran's Chinese and Russian and domestically made defense equipment proved itself completely ineffective against Israeli attack. And Iran knows full well that if it was ineffective today, it will be ineffective tomorrow. As for domestic counterintelligence, Israel reportedly operated a drone base in Iran, near Tehran. A drone facility that destroyed Iran's own air defenses and rocket launchers from within. Meaning, the regime was unable, and in the future will be unable, to monitor its own territory from enemy infiltration. Israel also assassinated numerous Iranian scientists and military leaders, both where they lived and where they worked. And when they fled, Israel still found them. And all this in a time of war. All this after Israel had already killed Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and an IRGC chief in Damascus. So even being on alert, Iran was and in the future will be helpless against Israeli penetrations, whether human or SIGINT or other. And we're talking about Iran, a battle-tested regime with very formidable military and intelligence capabilities, a regime constantly threatened by domestic opposition groups, a regime with a history of foreign intelligence operations, from AMIA in Argentina to assassinations in Turkey and Europe. A regime involved in military conflicts, from its wars with Iraq to constant conflicts from surrounding neighbors. A regime with one of the largest and most far-ranging missile stockpiles in the world. For context, according to US News and World Reports, Iran has the 6th strongest army in the world. Stronger than the UK, stronger than France, stronger than India, and stronger than Turkey. According to Wikipedia, the CIA prior to its 2015 restructure, maintained only 7 area divisions, one of which was Iranian operations. So this is the Iran that Israel went to war with. This was the Iran that Israel attacked, not the Iran that Israel manhandled for 12 days. And for that reason, the bravery and willingness of Israel's political and military leaders to use Israel's strength finally and withstand Western pressure and criticism may arguably be one of the greatest losses for Iran and Israel's enemies from this war. The fact that Israel was finally able to use its own strength. And that's why Israelis should be amazed, not only at the accomplishments of the military, of the Air Force, of the intelligence agencies, but also the courage of our military and political leaders, starting with the Prime Minister. So Israelis, don't be fooled by Iran's victory parade. Iran has lost, and lost badly. And with all these accomplishments, the next obvious question is, why stop? Why not regime change? And for this, we have to tackle some more fallacies. Firstly, Iran is not Gaza. It's not Hezbollah. It's the second largest country in the Middle East, and it lies thousands of kilometers away from Israel. Its eastern border is nearly 4,000 kilometers away. So the idea that Israel can successfully police Iran's current missile stockpile, including launchers that are as small as trucks, is impractical. And Iran borders Afghanistan and Pakistan. It has routes via friendly countries to China and Russia. So with such neighbors and such routes, the notion that Israel can keep Iran from acquiring additional missile capabilities is implausible. And Iran may not have showcased all of its missile capabilities, including precision targeting and damaging warheads such as cluster munitions. And they may not have done so in order to prevent full-blown regime change, to prevent attacks on industrial facilities, to prevent full U.S. involvement. Meaning Soroka Hospital and Beersheba may be more indicative of Iran's capabilities than the earlier attacks. So Iran's attack capabilities will never reach zero, and the missiles won't run out. So despite Israel's dominant military and intelligence victory, an extended conflict would mean for Israel routine missile fire, routine closures, and routine sheltering. And you say, Ariel, if you claim that even with these great victories, the missile threat still cannot be mitigated, then the obvious answer is regime change. Well, unfortunately here too, we hit a common fallacy. Iran's revolution was in 1979. 1979! Jimmy Carter was the US president. Menachem Begin was the Israeli prime minister. A 25-year-old Iranian at the time is now over 70 years old. The last Iranian Shah would be 105 today. So let's change this notion that a long-awaiting Iranian replacement army will ride in on tanks and jeeps, because it's wheelchairs and walkers at best. And this crown prince waiting to sweep the people of Iran off their feet, he left Iran before he was of drinking age. In fact, he was sworn in Egypt. So unless you're expecting the wisdom of a 12-year-old Melech Shlomo, King Solomon, you're in for a real disappointment. And let's not forget that Iran had a significant enough religious population to rebel against the secular Western lifestyle. And we are now multiple generations into an Islamic regime. So while we may hear an echo chamber of Iranian revolutionaries on social media, the reality is that this regime has survived nearly half a century through wars, through the Arab Spring, through embargoes, through sanctions, crashed currencies, natural disasters. So despite popular myths, we actually have a long-entrenched regime that has proven itself to be resilient. And an obvious and smooth transition to this mythical alternative government simply does not exist anymore, if it ever even did. So with this in mind, what are we left with? Well, we're still left with a regime that has lost confidence in its military and intelligence capabilities, may have lost its golden ticket to survival, and clings to a diminished and vulnerable missile arsenal. But it still remains a country capable of causing major world upheaval. Upheaval to world trade, to world oil markets. And this risk is merely a regime change away from falling into the hands of even more radical Islamic extremists, including influences from neighboring Pakistan and Afghanistan. And the US, scarred from decades-long involvements in Afghanistan and Iraq, including the US president and including the American firsters, are not interested in any of this. Nation building in the Islamic world has trapped the British, the Soviets, and the Americans over the past 200 years. So if we're talking about what we want, sure, I also want to dust off those 1970s peace agreements between the US and Iran and Israel. But we're talking about reality. And those days and those people are long gone. So Israelis, if you're wondering, are we Israelis pro or against regime change in Iran? Are we interested in liberating Iranians? Are we interested in liberating Gazans? Are we interested in liberating Lebanon? The answer is no, no, and no. Israel is interested in eliminating threats, current threats and future threats. And if it's no longer a threat, it's no longer our fight.